Becoming a better writing teacher is a journey. It could be on the old brick road. And what we learn about in this journey are the principles of teaching writing and making sure that we align each of them to how we teach writing. And so that's really the central idea of this short talk, that the day-to-day and across the year teaching of extraordinary writing teachers are aligned with the principles of good writing instruction. And to me, any of the problems that I see in classrooms that I visit or schools that I visit are really issues of alignment to the principles of good instruction. For example, one of the very popular reading programs that is being used across the country right now, it has writing units, fantastic, but every writing unit gives kids a prompt, doesn't give them choice of topics. So that particular
What?
aspect of that curriculum
We
is
also
not
have to just
aligned
wash
to
out the
can I get somehow
other thing.
that muted? Oh well, I'm just gonna have to talk over
I
that.
can't fix
But in
it.
that particular curriculum, there's a misalignment between
The air
the principle
fryer.
of
It's dirty.
if
It's
everybody just make
dirty.
sure they're muted. God, that's really distracting. Let me see if I can mute. I can't do that. So if everyone could just be super quiet or make sure that people around them are quiet, that would be really helpful. But with that particular curriculum, we know that one principle of teaching writing is that when students are engaged, they learn at a much higher rate. But when students don't get to choose topics, they're not as engaged and they don't learn as much. And in terms of what we mean by principles of writing, I'm not going to read all of the ones on this chart, but the very basic principles of things like students learn about writing best when they feel known by their teachers as people and as writers, or as I've just said, student engagement is crucial for students to learn to write well. And to be effective writing teachers, we need extensive knowledge about what we're teaching. And so there's 8 or 9 principles there. And but when our practice day to day and across the year is aligned to these kinds of principles, that's when we become really extraordinary writing teachers. And so what I want to do in my time with you in the next 25 minutes is to talk about 2 of the principles and give you a sense of, for each principle, one action you could take to better align your practice to these principles. And for each of these principles in my book with Matt, we have 8 or 9 actions for each principle that you can take as a part of your journey. We're just going to give you a taste for what we talk about. So let's go to this one right here. The principle that student engagement is crucial for students to learn to write well. We know from Ellen Keene's wonderful book on student engagement that learning is accelerated when kids are engaged. They have much more positive attitudes about writing, about themselves as writers, and they just learn better when they're engaged. And so the actions that we need to take to make sure that we're aligned with this principle is we need to create the conditions for engagement in our classrooms. So let me just talk about one action that we can take to create better conditions for engagement and help us be better writing teachers. And so one action is to make sure that we select engaging mentor text. Okay. And, it's interesting to think about mentor text. The formal definition of a mentor text doesn't really address this issue of engagement. And we typically think of mentor text as well-crafted text that we show students to help them see how they can better craft their writing and use conventions. And, of course, mentor text, I use a lot of published text. I use my writing. Sometimes I use student writing. But we don't really think of mentor text as creating the conditions for engagement. And what that means is this. When we choose text that mirrors student identities and their interest, okay, leaning on the work of Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, of course, they're more inspired to write when they see themselves and their interests reflected in text. But I think it goes even further than that. Okay, and this is the idea that I've been thinking a lot about recently. When the mentor texts contain expressive possibilities appropriate for the ages of the children we teach, that's really what inspires student to write.